The historical and political Colin's Last Stand, the video game-centric Side Quest, and the podcast series Fireside Chats are all fully independent and free of baked-in ads. If you'd like to show your support for one, two, or all three shows, please consider subscribing to Colin's Last Stand on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand. Your support on Patreon allows CLS to exist, and also nets you some cool perks, so please consider it. You can also show your support for Colin's Last Stand by buying official CLS merch at declarationclothing.com, all made in the USA. Thank you for your kindness and generosity. Now, on to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Colin's Last Stand Side Quest right here on YouTube. My name is Colin Moriarty. As always, I hope today's video finds you and yours very well. Today, I want to take a quick glimpse back towards the Game Awards and PlayStation Experience. Both events just happened this past weekend, or actually even just late last week. And I want to do it through a particular lens, which is through the lens of new game announcements. We saw lots of things we've already seen. It was pretty underwhelming, I think, in lots of respects, but I saw a lot of stuff that I thought was really interesting and new, too, that I think's worth exploring and even celebrating and being excited about. So I went ahead and found my 10 favorite new game reveals, and I put them in order, and that's what this video is all about. And I'm going to be really interested to see what you agree with and what you disagree with, but enough of that, let's get into the list, and I'll see you on the other side. Late last week and into this past weekend, an awards show and an annual exposition took place, one after the other, only a handful of miles away from one another here in Southern California. On the one hand, we had the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's yearly celebration of the gaming industry. On the other hand, we had PlayStation Experience, a PlayStation-centric expo where players can go hands-on with the most anticipated upcoming games. Now, in all candor, I'm not one for either of these events. I respect what Mr. Keighley is trying to do with the Game Awards, and I think he's a super nice, hardworking, industrious guy, but I think the gaming industry is markedly different than movies, television, and music, and doesn't require a gala that looks and feels ripped out of Hollywood's playbook. Likewise, PSX is a cool celebration for a brand I happen to have a ton of love for, but we're well beyond critical mass with game shows at this point. E3, Gamescom, Paris Games Week, Tokyo Game Show, multiple PAXs, a shit ton of Comic-Cons. It's enough already. But if there's something good that comes out of both of these events each December, it's new game announcements. The Game Awards showcased plenty of new games, and even though I rightly warned you during last week's episode of SideQuest that you should temper your excitement about PSX's potential on this front, a couple of tidbits snuck out there too. So I went through both shows and compiled what I thought were the 10 most consequential and exciting new game announcements, and put them in order of importance from a totally subjective standpoint. Note that this list doesn't include the odd piece of news, especially from PSX, where tidbits readily flowed, like teasing PSN name changing, God of War's incredible campaign length, etc., and instead focuses only on titles we didn't yet know existed, or simply hadn't seen anything from, even if we knew, say, a title, heard rumors, or knew something was mysteriously in development. So without further ado, let's jump in. Number 10 brings us the World War Z game revealed for the very first time at the Game Awards, and out of all of the games on this list, this one is the biggest question mark for me, hence its placement. For those unaware, World War Z is a mega popular novel first released over a decade ago in 2006. As its name suggests, it's about a world-crushing zombie apocalypse, and its popularity in written form led to a 2013 movie starring Brad Pitt that made something like 4 times its cost. So it's a property people care about. This game, which shouldn't be confused with the mobile game that came out around the time the movie launched, is under development by Saber Interactive, a studio that isn't exactly known for its high-quality offerings. And, as you can see, the game itself doesn't look graphically impressive, but it's the idea of what this game could be, and the sheer potential behind author Max Brooks' property, that means this game could very well be a dark horse. We'll have to wait to hear more, including when the game might launch, but in the meantime, it couldn't hurt to keep this title on your peripheral radar. Coming in at number 9 is Soul Calibur 6, the long-awaited, much-rumored continuation of the storied Soul Calibur franchise. While it's true that Soul Calibur is in no way, shape, or form as resonant and important as it was in the late 90s and early 2000s, particularly with the arcade and Dreamcast original and its PS2, GameCube, and Xbox sequel, Soul Calibur still has a fervent and loyal fanbase. 2D fighters have pretty much always relegated 3D fighters to second-class status in the vaunted fighting game community, but Soul Calibur has typically done a nice job of fighting the good fight. Pardon the pun. The gap between Soul Calibur 5 and Soul Calibur 6 has been the longest in the franchise's history, with 5 having launched way back in 2012. Soul Cal 6 will launch in 2018, so fans have been patient for over half a decade. Thankfully, a return to the stage of history is right around the corner. Whether or not this game can pierce an FGC enamored with a ton of other mostly 2D offerings is, however, another question entirely. At number 8, I'm putting Vacation Simulator, which is a VR exclusive title coming to Vive, Oculus, and PSVR sometime in 2018. Vacation Simulator, developed by Google-owned Alchemy Labs, is the sequel to 2016's Job Simulator, a game I happen to adore from PlayStation VR's launch. Job Simulator is a silly and irreverent game that takes place in the far-flung future, where robots have taken over to such an extent that quaint human jobs, like office worker and car mechanic, are relics of the past. Using software, you're tasked with jumping into these old arcane jobs and going through the motions. Vacation Simulator appears to be built in the same mold. Vacations, like the jobs of yore, are far-flung memories. So why not see how humans enjoyed themselves in those quaint analog days? The trailer suggests the same whimsy and absurdity Job Simulator was well known for can be found here, and I can't wait to get my hands on it next year. Although a little flourish towards the end of the brief trailer suggests that Vacation Simulator may not even launch when intended. You can't help but respect that in an industry that often nails its products to ambitious timelines, only to miss launch date after launch date. Number 7 is going to keep the good VR feelings alive. While Vacation Simulator was revealed at the Game Awards, 2 other interesting VR announcements were made at PSX. 2 announcements I'm fusing into one. The announcements revolve around PSVR functionality being added to games that otherwise lack any newfangled features. The Last Guardian, launched late last year exclusively on PS4, is getting a roughly 20-minute PSVR demo designed to immerse players into the lush world of Trico and his young companion. Better yet, not only is the demo free, but you don't even need the standalone game to download it and play it. All you need is the PSVR headset and an internet connection. Likewise, the Wipeout Omega Collection, which launched about 6 months ago on PlayStation 4, is also getting a totally free VR update, and it's far more expansive than The Last Guardian's rudimentary support. While only a small slice of The Last Guardian can be experienced in virtual reality, the Omega Collection's likewise free update will allow the entirety of the anthology to be played through goggles. Pretty damn cool, if I do say so myself. At number 6 is 10 Chambers Collective's 4-person co-op survival game called GTFO. 10 Chambers Collective is a dev studio formed in 2015 by Ulf Andersson, who is best known for his time helping pioneer the popular Payday franchise. The original Payday was a really solid, albeit half-baked idea, one predicated upon cooperation, as small teams robbed financial institutions. GTFO has a similar spirit behind it, although one that strays quite a bit from Payday's more grounded approach. Although the game was announced back in June of this year, we didn't know anything about it, and the trailer that premiered at the Game Awards gave us a great glimpse into what it's all about. GTFO revels in the supernatural, where devious and dangerous monsters have overtaken an underground compound that just so happens to be full of valuables that need to be taken back to the surface. The question is, can your team get in and out in one piece, with the goods in hand? The action-packed trailer contains no evidence of when the game might launch, but considering the studio came together in 2015, we may not be too far off from playing for ourselves. Coming in at number 5 is Witchfire, the all-new shooter from Polish developer The Astronauts. The Astronauts' only other game was The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, a story-based adventure game in the same vein as other so-called walking simulators. However, The Astronauts' base of expertise is actually in shooters, as the lead devs working there came from People Can Fly, the studio behind the likes of Painkiller and Bulletstorm. This title, therefore, allows them to return to their gameplay roots, although the trailer suggests that, surrounding shooting mechanics, players will find a slower, more deliberate, and more exploration-heavy game. Either way, it looks fantastic, especially considering its fusion of fantasy themes with the FPS genre. I will be watching keenly for more on this game. I suspect I won't be alone. Although I can't help but wonder how narrative-driven the title will be. The jump between The Vanishing of Ethan Carter and Witchfire is huge. You don't typically see a developer switch things up like this, especially in subsequent projects. That itself is worthy of praise in an industry so incredibly risk-averse. At number 4, I'm putting In the Valley of Gods, the second game from San Francisco-based developer Campo Santo. The studio's previous game, Firewatch, did gangbusters numbers, allowing the team to pursue a game that seems to be a great deal like their first endeavor, although the graphical style is quite different. Still, this promises to be an adventure game in the same vein as Firewatch, although hopefully with a far stronger ending, which kinda ruined their first endeavor for me. Unlike Firewatch, which took place in Wyoming, In the Valley of Gods takes place across the world in Egypt, and revolves around treasure hunting in some respect. It also doesn't seem to be a solitary and lonely experience, which differentiates it from Campo Santo's original title. I know that these walking simulator type games are much derided in some corners of the gaming community, but I happen to like them. And even with my disappointment over Firewatch, I'll still jump into In the Valley of Gods head first, because I think this team is absolutely capable of doing something great. I'm gonna put Medieval on PS4 at number 3, even though I'm the first to admit that that might be a little high. I could probably rattle off about 20 PlayStation franchises I'd love to see come back before Medieval, but I think this move shows a real propensity on the part of Sony to look at their back catalog and extract old gems that newer players may be totally unfamiliar with. We've not seen a Medieval game since Medieval Resurrection on PSP way back in 2005, and although protagonist Sir Daniel Fortescue snuck onto the roster of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, the series seemed all but dead. This game is apparently a remaster of the PS1 original, and if it's in the same style as the Crash Bandicoot remasters from earlier this year, it's going to look more graphically impressive than you might think. More of a remake than a remaster, as it were. Either way, it's cool that the PlayStation brand is officially old enough where throwbacks are starting to flow steadily as supplements to lots of newer and more exciting exclusives. Sliding into the second spot is Bayonetta 3, which was certainly a surprise announcement from my perspective, considering Bayonetta 2, exclusive to Wii U, hardly lit the world on fire from a commercial standpoint. That said, Nintendo fans were quite smitten with the game, as well as the original that was ported over to Wii U. And now Bayonetta 3 is coming to a far more successful, far more likable handheld meets console, which adds further evidence to Nintendo's mounting third-party support for its new hit machine. Making matters even better is that Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2 are both coming to Switch too, meaning that the soon-to-be trilogy will be playable front to back on a single piece of Nintendo hardware. The relationship between Platinum Games and Nintendo that spawned during the Wii U era appeared to be a bit of a dud, especially when you fold in the deeply subpar Star Fox Zero. But now Nintendo will be able to read the tea leaves better, and know if Bayonetta didn't resonate because it was stranded on Wii U, or if it didn't resonate because there's little consumer interest in it. Something tells me it might be the former. The number one announcement has to be the From Software tease, which is crazy in a sense since we had mere seconds of footage, no title, no target console or consoles, or anything else. If I were a betting man, I'd wager that this is Bloodborne 2, and as that's a Sony-owned IP, you'd have to imagine it'd be coming to PS4, but there's no guarantee there. I'm confident in saying it's not Dark Souls. From has been pretty clear that it wants to walk away from that franchise. Could it be Demon Souls? Perhaps. The thing here is that everything's speculative. From Software has been a studio for a very long time, but really only hit mainstream consciousness with Demon Souls, and then obviously Dark Souls, and then of course Bloodborne. It therefore has the ability to do whatever it wants, and it seems to produce a certain style of game that could easily be mistaken for Bloodborne, which could easily be mistaken for Dark Souls, which could easily be mistaken for Demon Souls. Who the hell knows at this point? It just seemed like the number one announcement because it was the most vague, but it also comes from the biggest and most beloved studio of the bunch, and obviously has the highest upside. I suspect we'll learn more in 2018. Alright, that's it for this episode of Colin's Last Stand Side Quest. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be very interested to see what you think, so leave your comments below. Let me know what game announcements you're excited about, what game announcements I might have missed or left off the list, etc. and so on. Also, please share this video with friends, family, let them know about Colin's Last Stand Side Quest, and of course, thumb the video up if you liked it and thumb it down if you don't to let me know what you think. I will waste no more of your time. I really appreciate your love, your attention, your support. It doesn't go unnoticed by me. This show exists because of you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and you and yours are doing very well. I'll see you next time for Side Quest. Keep on gaming.